The people who claim that Ron DeSantis was exploiting poor migrants are exploiting poor migrants by filing a class action lawsuit against DeSantis. Now, of course, the story is migrants file class action lawsuit against DeSantis, claim Martha's Vineyard trip was comparable to what they fled in Venezuela. Spare me your psychosis. I don't blame the migrants for this. This is clearly coming from leftist activists. They probably told them what to say and said, here's the form, just sign it, roll with it. We're going to do exactly what we're claiming they do when they're not doing it. Projection much. Here's the story, my friends. Ron DeSantis has responded to the class action lawsuit, and it's amazing. He even included an image of the consent form signed by the migrants outlining exactly what was happening. You see, here's the reality. Ron DeSantis did not do an overt political stunt. I think he actually said this makes sense, and it'll probably send a message. A political stunt, perhaps, an element of it. But basically, you get these illegal immigrants who come in, and he says, look, what do we do if we can't handle these migrants in these places? We do not have the amenities for all of these people coming across the border, and these liberal urban Democrat types keep voting for it. Hey, man, then send them there. Hey, well, there's an idea. Here's the thing. Joe Biden has been sending migrants to New York, to Ohio, to other to urban Democrat cities, and they never said a thing. They go into Californian cities. No one bats an eye. Ron DeSantis says, all right, we'll send them your way. And then suddenly everyone loses their minds because they're liars, they're hypocrites, and they're projecting what they do. So now a liberal organization has assisted these migrants in filing a lawsuit. Of course, it's the migrants who filed the lawsuit. But do you think that these migrants know anything about U.S. law or the Constitution? No. It's activist organizations doing it for them to target Ron DeSantis. Ron got a standing ovation, and he broke fundraising records when he was giving a speech. And then, I think this issue came up. Let's take a look at the story and see exactly what they're doing. From TimGuest.com. A leftist legal organization has filed a class action lawsuit against Florida Governor Ron DeSantis on behalf of the migrants flown to Martha's Vineyard last week. Exploiting migrants much? Approximately 50 migrants were flown to Martha's Vineyard, this we know. The lawsuit was filed by Lawyers for Civil Rights on behalf of 3 Venezuelan migrants and Alianza Americas, an activist organization that works for migrant rights. It alleges that the foreign nationals were manipulated, stripped them of their dignity, deprived them of their liberty, bodily autonomy, due process, and equal protection under the law. All not true. I'll show you we'll get through this, and I'll show you the permission slip, the consent form. It also alleges that the private flight to the elite vacation destination was cruelty akin to what they fled in Venezuela. I would love to see a judge adjudicate these claims. So I've been to Venezuela, my friends. And as much as the people there are wonderful, and the food actually was pretty good, I got, I don't know what it's called, but they have their signature dishes, arepas. And they take like a corn bun and they cut it open and they take pulled chicken with avocado mashed together and they stick it in and they put some cheese, lettuce, and tomato on it. Delicious. Just absolutely delicious. But I've been there and I've seen how bad it really is. I've seen how bad it can be for a lot of these people. There's something called, I think it's called the Tower of David, a skyscraper that was never finished. So people live in this skyscraper slum. It's crazy. You can ferry a motorcycle to drive you up 10 flights of stairs where the parking was going to be. And then you have to climb all the way to the top. So people who just live on the top floors in this unfinished skyscraper, that's crazy. It's crazy. Now, you want to claim that being flown to one of the wealthiest places in the world is akin to that? Spare me. I'd love to see a judge say something about that. These immigrants who are pursuing the proper channels for lawful immigration status in the United States experience cruelty akin to what they fled in their home country. Wrong. They're illegal immigrants. They enter illegally and then try to assert some asylum claim. You can argue that what they're doing is the legal path, sort of. The real legal path would be to go to a consulate, to go to an embassy and file your paperwork and then wait. Or if you have to leave immediately because there's a real threat to your life, which I believe Venezuela does have, of course, then you're going to wait at the border the southern border and apply for asylum in Mexico, in the United States while you're in Mexico. Apply for asylum while you're in Mexico is what I meant to say. But here's the other thing. Why aren't these people applying for asylum in Mexico for Mexican asylum and refugee status? It's insane to me. The lies. Mexico is awesome. Tons of Americans are fleeing now to Mexico City. You saw the story where it's like Mexicans are angry that a bunch of white Americans are going there and speaking English, and they're like, what's happening to our country? So these people won't go there, even though Americans want to be there. Get out of here, dude. I say, along with Governor Ron DeSantis, the lawsuit names the Florida Department of Transportation, Secretary of the Florida Department of Transportation, Jared Perdue, and 5 unnamed individuals and organizations who helped arrange the stunt. The complaint says that Governor DeSantis and the other defendants interfered with the federal government's exclusive control over immigration in furtherance of an unlawful goal and personal political agenda. The attorneys additionally allege that a rep of Governor DeSantis gained the trust of the migrants by giving them $10 McDonald's gift cards. Oh, you can't even give them free food from McDonald's? Under the auspices of acting out of the goodness of their hearts, the Doe defendants made false promises and false representations that if the individual plaintiffs and other class members were willing to board airplanes to other states, they would receive employment, housing, educational opportunities, and other like assistance at their arrival. The Doe defendants also told the individual plaintiffs and other class members that they would receive assistance with their immigration proceedings at their destination, the suit claims. And that's true. Let's break this down. All right, what were they offered? What were they allegedly offered? Employment, housing, educational opportunities, other like assistance. Do sanctuary cities allow employment of illegal immigrants? Yes, they do. That's why they're sanctuaries. Do they offer housing? Yes, they do. And they did. They put them in Boston and gave them a place to live. Educational opportunities. Now, I don't know the specifics there, but again, sanctuary cities. An opportunity is not a guarantee. They're saying you'll have a chance to get an education there. Other like assistance. They would help them with their immigration proceedings. That's what sanctuary cities are. What did they lie about? The situation amounts to false imprisonment, according to the organization. So you mean to tell me that when you create a sanctuary jurisdiction, you will not be able to get unemployment, housing, or educational opportunities? That sounds exactly like what you are offering them. So if Ron DeSantis or anyone went to these migrants and said, look, these are sanctuary cities. They won't deport you. They will help you process your immigration. You'll have an opportunity to get a job, housing, or an education. How is any of that not true? That's right. They're lying. DeSantis has asserted the migrants boarded the flight willingly. So here we have from Julio Rosas. Florida Governor DeSantis' office responds to the class action lawsuit that was filed in Massachusetts. The migrants were homeless, hungry, and abandoned. And these activists didn't care about them. And the office also provided the consent form. This is amazing. So here's the official statement. They say, it is opportunistic that activists would use illegal immigrants for political theater. If these activists spent even a fraction of this time and effort at the border, perhaps some accountability would be brought to the Biden administration's reckless border policies that entice illegal immigrants to make dangerous and often lethal journeys through Central America and put their lives in the hands of cartels and coyotes. I'd like to point out an honorable mention when Donald Trump mentioned in the debate that coyotes were taking advantage of these immigrants. And then liberals en masse went on Twitter and started laughing, thinking that Donald Trump was referring to animals, when in fact they just were too ignorant to know that coyote is a trafficker. They didn't know that. They thought Trump literally meant animals. And they said, well, you can't blame us because Trump probably did. No, Trump was referring to human traffickers. The transportation of the immigrants to Martha's Vineyard was done on a voluntary basis. The immigrants were homeless, hungry, and abandoned. And these activists didn't care about them then. Florida's program gave them a fresh start in a sanctuary state, and these individuals opted to take advantage of chartered flights to Massachusetts. It was disappointing that Martha's Vineyard called in the Massachusetts National Guard to bust them away from the island within 48 hours. Attached is a consent form for the flight to Massachusetts, and linked for reference is Texas consent form. Well, amazing. Here it is. Official consent to transport. Now it's in English and Spanish. It says, I blank, born on blank, agreed to be transported by the benefactor or its designated representatives to locations outside of Texas, to locations in sanctuary states. I agreed to hold the benefactor or its designated representatives harmless of all liability arising out of or in any way relating to any injuries and damages that may occur regarding the agreed transport to locations outside of Texas until the final destination of Massachusetts. The benefactor and designated officials represent that they are not providing transport made in furtherance of any unlawful entry into the United States. Now, that's the English. In Spanish, it says, consentimiento oficial para transportación. And then it says, yo, redacted. And then, I don't know what that word is. Acedo, there's another part of it. And 260188. Voluntariamente consentio ser transportado por el benefactor y sus representantes. I don't speak Spanish. Actually, just enough to get by. But haciendo que el benefactor ni sus representantes son responsables por daños. Oh, I can't read Spanish. Anyway, you get the point. They signed it. Firma, signature. 130922. Hey, that's September 13th. Lugar de salida, TX. Lugar de llegada, MA. 260188. Facha en nacimiento. Is that date of birth, I guess? Yeah, it's their date of birth, it looks like. Here they've actually stated they are leaving Texas and heading to Massachusetts. They knew this. In what way, in any way, did DeSantis or anyone else do wrong by telling them exactly what they were doing? And then the benefactor represents, designates, blah, 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 transportation of individuals. So basically it says the same thing. Well, here's the response. One guy says the consent form is in English, but where to sign is in Spanish. And? So what? One guy says, signing a form consenting to do something because you were lied to doesn't make the consent legitimate. Bro, this guy doesn't understand how the law works. He says, it has as much validity as signing a consent form to get into an unmarked van because somebody promised you candy and then no candy is provided. In response, Stick Balrus, excellent name, says, I hear you, but the consent form just says they are being taken to a sanctuary city. It doesn't specify which one. Unless Martha's Vineyard isn't a sanctuary city. I don't know if it's not. No, you're both wrong. Sorry. It says to a sanctuary state, to locations in sanctuary states. Locations in sanctuary states. Who knows where? And more importantly, the consent form shows they acknowledge they would be leaving Texas and heading to Massachusetts. End of story. They wrote that in. The individual who signed it and put their birthday wrote the states of departure and arrival, which means they were aware of where they were going. You cannot blame Ron DeSantis for that. Now, if they wrote in, if DeSantis' people wrote in Texas and Massachusetts, maybe you can argue they didn't understand what that meant. They wrote in TXMA. They did. Now, perhaps they were lied to. I'm sorry. Look, contracts can be void if you lie. That is true. But this outlines exactly what they did to the T. What are they going to say? As they stated in the suit, I was told there would be job opportunities, employment, education. Those opportunities are there in a sanctuary city. Now, hold on. Just because Martha's Vineyard deported them does not negate that they do offer these things. Case in point, right now, they are in Massachusetts where they agreed to go. At the Cape Cod military base, where they have food and they have housing and they have these opportunities. And they are being assisted with their immigration and all of that stuff by these activists. And the lawsuit is actually evidence that they are being assisted. Now, isn't that something? The lawsuit itself proves they are receiving the assistance and the opportunities they were promised, negating itself. It's a paradox. Incredible, huh? But they consented to it. And now you get people who are trying to desperately justify. One person says, separate question, in Florida, isn't it the state Senate that is supposed to decide how state funds are spent? And yes, good point, good question. One responder says, yes, they did, with restrictions. It allowed for transport of undocumented migrants being removed from Florida. That wasn't the case here. It also required 2 bids to contract the flight. That didn't happen either. The contract was awarded to a DeSantis donor without bids. Now, I don't know about all that. But what I do know is there is a bill which has been circulating, the budget, which says they allocated, I think, $12 million towards transporting people. It may have said from Florida. That's an interesting point. So there are questions about why it came from Texas. And I honestly, I'm wondering why it came from Texas. There are Venezuelan migrants illegally in Florida as well. Why Texas? Interesting question. And why was DeSantis involved? Where did the money come from? I got no problem with saying I would like to have these questions answered. Look at this. People are just linking lawyers and guys. Is it consent when given under false pretenses? Yes. Sorry. Have a nice day. Now, the literal answer is no. The legal answer is no. But how are you going to prove false pretenses? So look, a lot of people seem to think that contracts are guaranteed. Here's what has to happen. Let's say I promise that I will give you this here guitar pick. I say, I will give you this guitar pick in exchange for $1 million. You sign the contract. And then you hand me $1 million. And I hand you this guitar pick. You then sue and say, I was told the guitar pick was a rare item that Jimi Hendrix used when he played. And it was the last of its kind. And that was not true. Yes, you're alleging fraud. So that contract may be void. Maybe. The issue is, will the individual lie under oath and have any means to back up their claims? So if the person who lied and committed the fraud goes in and says, I told them it was a standard guitar pick, here's what's going to happen. The judge is going to say, in what sane world would a person give $1 million for a guitar pick? That makes no sense. We're going to void this transaction. It makes no sense. Judges can do that. If you try and see that's obvious. This guitar pick in no way is worth $1 million, and no reasonable person would have accepted the terms of that deal had they known the truth. And you can argue, no, they knew the truth. And the judge would be like, if they did, why would they give you $1 million for a 10-cent piece of plastic? Yeah, sorry. They can void it. There's a lot of things they can do. As for this, the consent form outlines everything they did to the T. It doesn't make any promises of employment. So you can say, well, they promised me things that didn't happen. And Ron can be like, do sanctuary states allow illegal immigrants to work? They do. Housing? They do. Education? Many do. Yes. So we didn't promise them anything that wasn't made available to them. And in fact, it's all available to them now. So these, here's what I see on Twitter. I love this. People thinking they know the law and they don't understand that judges have a lot of power. And they seem to think that lawsuits are fact. I see this on the left and the right too. Someone will file a lawsuit and they'll say, I allege that John Smith did a backflip. And then people will report lawsuit, quote, John Smith did backflip. And people will be like, wow, did you hear what happened? John Smith did a backflip. And you're like, dude, they are alleging he did. It is not proven in court. It is a claim. And just because they filed a claim doesn't mean they'll win. Doesn't mean it's true. And I love this too. Like with Alex Jones, they're like, he was just ordered by a court to pay $45 million. And it's like, yeah, get in line, buddy. Here's how it works. Let's say I take out a loan for $1 million to buy a property. I now owe a person $1 million. Then someone sues me. There is a line of debtors. And the court can be like, you got to pay this person $1 million and be like, that's true, but this guy was owed first. You can't interfere with a third party's debt repayment because you sued. That wouldn't be fair to that third party. To put it simply, if Alex Jones owes $1 million to person A, $1 million to person B, and $1 million to person C, and $45 million to person D, person A, B, and C are not going to let him start paying the lawsuit party because they want their money. And they're going to say, just because you sued doesn't mean you can take the money from us. He's got to pay us. So get in line, buddy. The point is, these people think that the lawsuit means Alex Jones will pay these people money. I don't think they're going to see a single penny. It's going to be jammed up in the courts. And then what's going to happen? A sheriff may come and say, we're going to take your assets. It's going to be like, actually, you can't because those assets are being given away to someone else already. I'm penniless. We'll see, though. I don't think he is, but I don't want to get into Alex Jones. My point is simply that this lawsuit is a political stunt. What DeSantis did in some ways, I believe, is a political stunt, but in many ways, it's not. Sanctuary cities says we can accommodate them. Cities say they can accommodate these people. So transporting them there is just abiding by what they voted to do. If Texas can't sustain it, if Florida can't sustain it, and these people say they insist they will, then it was the right thing to do for these migrants. The idea that they would then sue, they are being manipulated and used as pawns by these liberal elites. Dave Smith put it really well. I mentioned this the other day. They vote for sanctuary policies, but they're not border states. They vote to take away your guns, but they have armed security guards. You see how the game is played. The moment you actually make them live up to what they vote for, they lose their minds. And they claim you're doing all the things they're actually doing. I think this consent form is clear as day. It says Texas, it says Massachusetts, And it was signed, dated, and all that. So they knew. They wrote in the states to where they would go. And what's wrong about being promised these things? Now, first of all, can we prove they actually promised these things? No. You can say they promised me unemployment, all that stuff, and they can be like, we gave them a consent form and they signed it. Sanctuary cities, whatever they heard about sanctuary cities, maybe they misconstrued, but they agreed to be transported there. And right now, they are getting food, they are getting shelter, and they are in a sanctuary state. Everything promised in the allegations is happening for them. In fact, this lawsuit is actually, as I stated, this is assistance towards their immigration process. So you want to come out and claim that they're not getting these things. The lawsuit itself proves your lawsuit wrong. Absolutely brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Ron DeSantis hit a grand slam with this one. So, you know what, these are the kind of moves that I think make that show DeSantis is presidential. Absolutely. And we had another story that I'll briefly mention. DeSantis keeps White House and Delaware and media guessing on migrant flight plans. A flight initially bound for Delaware was rerouted to New Jersey. I think he's got to do it. I think Ron needs to send as many migrants as possible to keep sending just Martha's Vineyard. Just lay it on, baby, until Martha's Vineyard, cancels flights and proves they won't allow immigrants in? Think about it. If Ron loads up 10 planes and tells these migrants exactly what's happening and shows them the news story and say, look, these people are at a military base, they have housing, they're not going to be deported. Seems like a good bet for you. They'll agree to it, these migrants. Send these people to Martha's Vineyard, and what will Martha's Vineyard do? Shut down their airport. That's right. They will suspend migration. How much do you want to bet? I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 1 p.m. on this channel. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all then.